Okay. All right. So, any other question? Okay. So, see, the things we require, the columns we may need, depends on how advanced the form is. I believe that for someone who is building just normal survey and what's it called? Normal survey questionnaire, and maybe data collection tool. I don't think you need more than this. Let me open something we did on PIA. So let me see if find it. Yeah, so I was able to see something. Okay, so let me share this screen. This screen I want to share is PIA. Okay, so if you look at this new screen now, I'm hoping it is up now. Okay. Yeah. So if you look at this, you have required. That is good. So I think your question is okay. Read only. Okay, so if you look at this, this is a tool we used for a BIA assessment, a BIA sometimes last year, a very relatively advanced tool to have our normal type, name, maybe I should color it to make it stand out. Are you seeing it clearly?
Yes, type name.
Yeah, type name, label. Please forget this pom-pom English. Is when you build your form in ODK, what's it called? Build, you may see something like this, but it has no effect. So hint, required. Now, when you say that the form is required, what it means is that that form is compulsory. So the person cannot move front without filling something. So I remember when we did it, if you try to move front, it will tell you that input is required. Maybe you want to display another message when that happens, like an error message. You could just say, please insert or please answer this question before going to the next one. You know, just the question that pops up that shows when someone does something that is not right, when someone does the wrong thing. That's actually what I'm talking about. So we introduce another column that says required message. So required message, it has to be written in required underscore message. So what message do you want to display when someone tried to swipe on a question that you said is required and they've not made any input? So someone has not made any input and they want to skip that question. Meanwhile, you have enforced that something must happen. Because sometimes people go to field, people that are not quite trained in ODK, they go to the field and they will call you and start saying that I'm trying to go forward and it's not going, it's hanging. I'm trying to move forward and it's not going, that kind of thing. So if they don't have any message that will tell them that this is why it's not going, they will think that something is wrong with their phone. So you have to put something that will let them know that yes, you cannot move forward because you have not had an input here. So you put that this question is required. You come here and type the message you want to display when they default this particular rule. So it's called an error message. And that message should come under required underscore message, all right, as a column of its own. So you say you can impute 0. So when they move forward, this is the message they will see, and they know that something must be inside this column. All right. So now again, I told you that note is a data type that only displays information, does not take an input. So you have this note when you want to display something without asking for an information back, like the introduction, or you're introducing a section, maybe section A. You want to introduce section A, you want to introduce so thing and that type of thing. That's why you use notes. But in some cases, you would want to make reference again to something, or you'd want to see something without taking an input. Maybe, just maybe, you calculated a total like I did here. I did calculate a total here. Why is that so? Okay, sorry, I'm on the wrong. Okay, sorry, I'll show you. So maybe you calculated something, a number, or maybe you put a number, for instance, an amount, maybe the price for paracetamol. Depending on the questionnaire you're building, sometimes it becomes necessary for you to put a fixed number somewhere. So maybe you want to do some cascading, some advanced form building, I think basic one, and you are at some point going to calculate average. All right. Average is usually the summation of the events over the summary over the number of events. So you'd want to put the number of events first so that you can make reference to it later. So, and you just say the number of events is going to be integer, not text. So you say I don't want to confuse you more, but let me hope I will convince you instead of confusing you. So you say integer. Population, total population, for instance. You are going to do LQS, lot quality assessment, and in that settlement, they've given you the total population. So you put your total population here, and then you come to this place. So all you want is for the total population figure you put there to display. You don't want it to accept any input at all. So in this place, you are going to create a new column called read only, and you say yes. All right. So, but again, the value you want it to be there is you're going to define that value as equal to 300. So you've been told that the total population is 300. So the value is going to be, remember when you want to do constraints, you start with a dot. It's going to be dot equal to 300. And then you mark it read only. So you want to see this 300. You don't want to edit it. It's not editable. You just want to see it. All right. So the same way we'll have a required message, we have constraint message. So you have constrained a form such that it must not take somebody who is below 18 years. So you have constrained a form, okay, this, yes, like here, such that it must not take someone who is below 18 years. So the person comes here and types that someone's age is 14 and tries to swipe. It will not go. So what message do you want the person to see that's the reason why they can't go forward? So introduce a new column and call it constraint underscore message. So this is the message that will display when something like that happens. I mean, when someone clicks enters an input that does not obey this constraints rule of 17 years and above, of above 17 years. So the constraint message is, you come here and type the message and say, this age range is not acceptable. So this is the message that will display when you click that. All right. Am I making sense at all?
Sure.
Yes.
It's too quiet here. Yeah. Okay, I thought someone was saying something. Okay, so all right. So which other column can we talk about? Talked about appearance. Talked about. Okay, so let's make do with these columns that we have currently. I think they are enough for any kind of form we wish to build at our level. So what I noticed from the last class is that we still have challenges with the choices sheet. The choices sheet. Okay, so let me try to address that. Meanwhile, I shared an assignment this evening. Have we all seen it?
I've tried to share all of them to everybody. I hope everybody has.
Okay. All right. All right, so let's take some time actually and talk about choices, the choices sheet and how it operates. It's very important for me if you understand that. All right, I think it's a major challenge we've had in our last classes. So let's talk about it and see whether we can better understand it. So how best to talk about this? How best to talk about this? How best to talk about this? Okay. Just a minute, a minute, a minute.
I think where there was gap was hello, Uche.
Sorry? You said where there was gap was where?
Was when you introduced the yes, no, and you have to now make reference to it.
Yes. Okay, so
in all the
I agree with you totally. Can anybody from the group make an attempt in explaining how the choices, especially yes or no, how it operates, how it works? I know some of you understand it very well. So can anybody attempt to in your own language, explain how it works. Just an attempt, it's not an assessment. I believe it will go a long way, even if it's for 3 minutes. Anyone? Okay, it's fine. So I will try again. I keep saying this. When we do ODK view, you understand that all these things you're not going to be doing them. I'm just trying to help you learn it the hard way. And in learning it the hard way, you would appreciate it better. Okay. So all right, let me share this screen. Where at start? Look, I'm sharing a new screen now. Okay. Just a minute. Okay. I'm sharing a new screen and I'm calling it choices. Right? The choices screen. So I want us to gain a deeper knowledge of how the choices work. I remember in the choices column, we have list name, we have name, then we have label. So we'll be focusing on this while we just touch on these two. So in your normal questionnaire, you build a form and you want to ask about marital status. We have single as usual, you have married, you have divorced, separated. Right? And you would usually code it. 1 represents single, 2 represents married, 3 represents divorced, and 4 represents separated. Next, you have this question that takes yes and no as inputs, and you want to code it as 1 represents yes, 0 represents no. So in your choices sheet, these codes belong to the name column. The code are actually the real name of your choices. It's like a variable name in the survey sheet. So this code belongs to the name column. So, but how you want it to appear, when you're analyzing make it more readable. Like I told you, it's like SPSS where you have the choices, the variable choices, name and type, and then this is like SPSS because in SPSS, when you declare a variable in SPSS, you also mention the type, whether it's text or integer. I don't remember the data types listing in SPSS. You also talk about the length of that variable, right? So we now come and list the options and then their codes, what they represent. So in the same way, here, these codes, as you see them, belong to the name column, while the array names that we want to appear belong to the label column. All right. So now that you understand that this is what you have interfaced with all along, you know about this. I'm sure you've dealt with questionnaire, you've built one yourself, and usually code the options like this. So I am very much convinced that you understand these two columns, name and label, knowing that the name holds the code, the coding, and then knowing that the label holds the label, how you want it to appear. So having this understanding, I want to progress to the list name column. All right? I want to progress to the list name column, which is the most important one. So the choices sheet, sorry, the survey sheet, what the survey sheet does is the engine of the XLSForm. So it takes the questions, the questionnaire, it houses the questionnaire, and when it does so, what happens is that whenever it sees select, it sees it as a command. That means go to the choices sheet and select. Go to the choices sheet and select. So what I want you to know that if we have rows in Excel like this, especially in the choices sheet, and we have name and label and list name here, whatever is here drags whatever is here. Whatever is here drags whatever is here. And whatever is here drags whatever is here. So it works in row pattern. It works in row pattern. It's only what is in row B that will drag what is in row B here. It's only what is in row C here that will drag what is in row C here. So the select goes to the choices list, choices sheet, and the only thing it sees is list name. This is the only thing the survey sheet sees when it touches on select and goes to the choices sheet. It sees this column called list name. What does it do when it sees this column called list name? What it does is that it looks at what is under this column. All right? It looks at what is under the column, and a minute. Okay. So it looks at what is under the column. Somebody's hand was up. Okay. It looks at what is in the column and does exactly what I'm going to show you now. show you what it does. Before I show you what it does, this is the survey sheet, and this is what the survey sheet writes. It says, when I stop talking, okay. The survey sheet says, select what happened now. Pardon me, I'm trying to resolve this, please. Okay, I think my battery is low. Okay, so we have select underscore one, for instance. All right, and then we'll have this space. We'll have this space, which I'm going to continue here. I will call it marital status. Marital status. All right. So I told you that this select underscore one simply means the command. The computer is commanded to select one option from a list of arguments called marital status. So this is command, and this is argument. So you command the computer to select one option from a list of options called marital status. So where is it going to select it from? It comes to the list column of the choices sheet. And when it comes there, it is looking for this argument called m underscore status. Again, I want to believe I'm making sense. So they tell you to select one, select underscore one, and the argument you supply is yes underscore no. You are telling it to look for in the choices sheet a list of options called yes or no and select them. So that when you go to the choices sheet under list, the column called list name, all you have to do is that same argument, you say yes underscore no, yes underscore no, yes underscore no. Then you come and say m underscore status, m underscore status, m underscore status. So you have this in your choices sheet. So when you have this in your choices sheet, you come to their name, you come to their label. So assuming we have 1, 2, 3, yes, no, father. Don't be confused. I'm driving at somewhere. Then we'll have here 1, 2, 3. We'll have single, married, separated. So if this is what you have, you're going to notice that when in the survey sheet, we say select one and supplied this argument, it comes to the survey sheet. And I told you the only thing it sees in the survey sheet is the list name. It comes to the list name of the survey sheet and it looks for where exactly this argument, yes underscore no, is. So wherever it sees yes underscore no, stop now. So wherever it sees yes underscore no in the list name of the choices sheet, whatever is on the right hand side of that place from name to label, it pulls it up and displays it for that question, that particular question. Whatever is there. So if we have yes underscore no into 100 times, whatever is attached to that yes underscore no, it pulls it and dumps it on that particular question. So if we go to another question, maybe this is happening in question 5. If we go to maybe question 10 later, and we still supply this same argument, yes underscore no, to question 10, what is going to happen is that it will come back to the choices list, still look for the same yes underscore no that we have used in question 5, still looks for the same yes underscore no, and whatever again is attached to that yes underscore no as an argument, it pulls it and dumps it on the survey question that you are referring to. So that day I was trying to say that if you're building a questionnaire that has 50 questions with yes or no answers, maybe the total questions are 100, but out of the 100, 50 have yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. There's no point typing yes underscore no into 50 times. Once you do it once in the choices sheet, all you now have to do is in the survey sheet, type your select underscore 1, yes underscore no. Select underscore 1, yes underscore no. So for the number of times you do select underscore 1, yes underscore no, it will go to the choices sheet and pick the options attached to the yes underscore no arguments and display them just once. This is what I was trying to explain that day. So if what is in the survey sheet, if what is in the question is marital underscore status, and at some point again, you want to determine the marital status, maybe you're asking the person, have you, okay, like during the night survey, questions around HIV would usually ask you maybe how many times have you had unprotected sex in the last 6 months? Sometimes you list maybe 5, if it's 5 people or 3 people, it queries you to list the 3 persons, their age, their sex, and their marital status. So in question 3, you have given your own marital status, and in question 49, it's asking you about the marital status of the person you had unprotected sex with. All right. So now it's referring to marital status again for the second time. There is no point repeating this option, marital status, in the choices list. Once you have it once, what matters is the argument. Just supply this argument to that question that is requesting for the second marital status. Once you supply this argument there, M underscore status, that particular question comes to the choices list. Look for where there is M underscore status, and whatever option are listed against the M underscore status, it pulls them and dumps them to itself. It drags them to itself and dumps them there, regardless of the fact that you had used this for question 3. So it's reusable. And that's what I was trying to explain in our last contact. And I realized it was very confusing to most of us. So I don't know, do you have a better understanding of the choices sheet and how it operates now? I want to get the feedback.
Yes.
I know that Dr. BC was not here on Saturday last week. So BC, how are you now? Good evening. Dr. BC, are you there? Okay, I'll go Patricia. Right? Patricia, I'll go. I don't know this.
She's off and on.
She's off and on, right?
The network is not strong.
Yeah, network is not strong. Is that Dr.
Hello,
Kusu?
can you hear me?
Yes.
No, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, it's Patricia. But it's I'm using my mommy's phone.
Okay. Okay, can you see the
So
screen with your
I've
phone?
been following, but it's just the net. Yes, I can see it.
Okay.
It's just that the network is disturbing actually. But
Is it
I'm
Mugu? How long?
following.
Any confusion? Have I confused you or convinced you? Dr. Zemugo.
Okay, good evening. My it has been going on and off, but so far.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. In any case, we will continue. Dr. Bobo, any question? Okay. Yes, he's not. Dr. Nebe, are you good?
Yes, I am. Let's go.
Okay. It's all right. So, coming back to our form of Saturday, the one we were reading on Saturday, one of the things we recapped on is constraints. So, and like we discussed, we said that constraints enables you to constrain an input. So you don't want the age of your respondents. You don't want people less than 18 to answer your questionnaire. So you just put constraints. When you put constraints, and then in against that question, you put dot, and then signify your constraints, maybe dot greater than 17, or maybe you want to ask question about school-aged children, 4 to 13 years old. So you don't want anybody who is above 13 to answer your question. So you do dot less than 14. So it's only those who are less than 14 that can answer your question, or that the parents or guardian can answer question on their behalf. We talked about reference, relevance, and I said that relevance is the skip logic, how you skip when a question is not relevant for the person you've been asked. For instance, if someone has said they are male, there's no point asking them how many times have you been pregnant before. If someone has answered that they are male, there's no point asking them about I don't know, about parity. If someone is single, or if someone has never married before, there's no point asking them questions about that are relevant to or for married people. If someone has not been in the clinic in the past 6 months, there's no point asking the person questions about their clinical experience last week. So we use the dollar sign and make reference to the variable that we want to skip. So here, the marital status, we want only female to answer question on. Want only female to answer question on marital status. And we say, because in our choices sheet, female represents 2. The code name for female is 2. So we'll say if the computer receives an input called 2, then ask question on marital status for sex. So if sex is equal to 2, that means if sex is equal to female, if this is equal to female, then the next question should show up. So what it means is that this relevance is telling the computer that this question can only show or display if this condition is met. If this condition is not met, it will not show. So if sex is 1, question 8 will not show, it will skip. That is what the skip logic does. We talk about hints. Hint is like the small write-up that shows on the screen of ODK that says we observe from the respondent and select most appropriate. So you put it as a hint for the data collector. So when they read it, they understand that they are not supposed to select more than 2 options. The hint also serves as a reminder. It reminds them that in this particular question, they are meant to select just 2 most appropriate ones. So we talked, most importantly, we talked about, it is another relevance. How much did you spend on the following items? So we talked about group. And I said that if you are doing a questionnaire and they want to know the spending capacity, no, not spending capacity, the spending history of your respondents in the last hospital visit, for instance. You want to know how much they spent in their last hospital visit. So how are you going to do it? So you're going to do it by either separating the costing or putting them in a group, but the most efficient way is to put them in a group. So you click on begin group, and when you click on begin group, Patricia, I want to eat too. So when you click on begin group, you had already mapped out what you want to be inside that group. Okay. So, and I told you that once you type begin group, every other thing that comes after it is seen under that group until you end the group with end group. All right. So sometimes if you start a group, that does not end the questionnaire. So after the group, other questions continue. So what you do is when you start a group, make sure you end it with end group at the end of that group so you can continue other questions. And when you have end group, there will be nothing here in every other part of the column, just that just that first column of type, and because the type is to end group, there is nothing else. So when you say begin group, you put the variable name. The variable name for the group is hospital cost. We want to calculate the hospital cost, Abby. Then we'll now put the label, which comes as the question. How much did you spend on the following items in your last hospital visit? So then you now list the items that you want to cost with. Remember, we want to cost items of people's spending in their last hospital visit. So now, if that's the case, we list these items here. So want to cost for transportation, want to cost for registration card, that's card. one to cost for lab, one to cost for drugs. All right, and then once to get the total cost displayed so that we are sure of what we are doing. It helps in data quality. So that if someone has said 500, you will mistakenly put 50,000. So in the total, you would usually see that your total is now 55,000 when in reality, all the things that the person has mentioned is not up to 10,000. So it calls it to order. So remember, in doing that, we list the items we want to cost: transport, registration, lab, and drugs. And then these costs, we want to take them as integer because they are coming in as number. We're going to be writing the cost as numbers: 1,000, 15, 2,000, 10,000, 15,000, etc. So their data types are going to be integer, all of them. All right. Someone says the connection is difficult. I hope the person was in a physical class. But if we have any question after today's class, in our last class, we will spend more time. I'll make sure in our last class, we're really going to spend more time. So we want to do a recap from day one, do a recap for day two, and then face the final crux of the whole matter that day. So if you have any question, if you still have any confusion after today's class, it will be good if you write them down and bring it to that class. I would have said send me your questions so that I will address it to you, but it's better I address it where the public, that's where everybody is available so that they can also learn. And if you are in Enugu in our final class, it's very, very, very important and vital that you are there physically. Don't wait for the virtual. Like I said, it's going to be our final class, and we're going to be doing a lot of things that day. So try and make it possible to be there physically. So we'll keep it open for all of us to meet at a common ground. So if this Saturday is not convenient for a larger part of us, we can always select another day, but I want a day that will have at least 80% of us present physically in the class. All right, so that's a side comment anyway. So we'll have these the data types are integers, then the variable names are here in small letters, and then underscore where necessary. So and then we want, there's a relevance we put here. We want that the people who would answer question on lab and drug are only the people who have done registration. So how do we do that? We go to relevance and say that registration must be greater than 0. So someone must have spent something in registration for them to be able to visit the lab, to pay for lab, or to pay for drugs in the hospital. All right. So that's why we put this relevance, that the registration is greater than 0. I'm sure we understand how it is here. If you don't understand, please don't feel, just ask me questions so that we explain further in detail. Now, what's out of time, for the want of time, what we could not explain on Saturday is this calculate. So in some aspect of our work in the future, we'll be needing to calculate, we'll be needing the calculation function of the XLSForm. So if we want to calculate, okay, if we want to calculate, the data type for our calculation is going to be called calculate, all right, like it is here. Then the variable is the total cost. So we want to calculate and get the total cost for the last hospital visit. And I just called it TC because this row is not what is going to display in the ODK. The calculate command here, this calculate you are seeing here, what it does is that it performs this calculation at the background. It does not display it. All right? Are you guys with me? I just need one person to say yes. Okay. in assumption
Yes.
that you guys are with me, what the calculate function does is that it performs the calculation at the background. It does not display it on the ODK. All right. So it does the calculation on the background and it keeps it in the form. You don't get to see it. But the most important thing is that you put calculate, you put total cost, and then you put the label as you want it. Now, at that same column, let me hide this one so that what the ones relevant to us will show. So this is it, calculate total cost, TC, and then the main thing. So the main thing is now, what are you calculating? Remember that I told you whenever you're making reference, you don't refer to label, you don't refer to type, you refer to variable name. So we want to calculate the cost of transport, registration, lab, and drug. So how do you do that? You put your $sign, which refers to the existing variable, and says that what I want to calculate is $sign transport plus $sign registration plus $sign lab plus $sign drug. So I'm adding what is here, any input I get from transport for registration, for lab, and for drug. I am adding all of them together using the calculate function. So the computer sees this and calculates it the way you want it. If you want it to minus, if you want it to minus a particular cost from the other cost, you replace the plus with a minus sign, right? If you want it to multiply, maybe you are multiplying quantity and unit cost, you use multiplication sign. But here, we're just adding the cost of transport, the cost of registration, the cost of lab, and the cost of drug. So we use calculate and then use summation sign, that is plus sign, to do that. So now that it calculates at the background, how do you now display it? You want to display what has been calculated in the background. So if it calculates it in the background, this variable is holding the answer as a value. So what is in transport is, for instance, far 2,000 from Ogui to Ababa. Registration is 500 at Backlane. Lab is 45 for Wider. Then drug is 45 for Augmentin. All right. So these are the values that these items are holding in the ODK phone. They hold this value for you, and then you come here to calculate their sum. All right. So now that you come here to calculate their sum,
Am I the only one that is not seeing it?
Jehovah, you're not seeing my screen? My screen is shared now. Who else cannot see my screen?
While you were typing those 2,500, it wasn't showing.
But it's showing now. Is it showing now? Huh?
Hello?
Is it showing now? Is it
Yeah, it's
showing
showing
now?
now.
I'm seeing it.
Yeah, most times the
Showing.
voiceover is faster than the visual, especially when you're sharing screen. So it's normal.
Okay.
It's normal. Okay. So say transportation from a bit of what 2,000 Backlane 500 4545. So these items are holding these values, and then we sum the values here. All right. And when we sum the values here, what is now holding the total value, the summed up value, is this variable. These four variables were holding each of their values that we entered. But the sum is now this total cost that is holding it, and is holding it in a way that you don't see it. It's at the background, you don't get to see it. Now you want to force it to display what it is holding. All right? All you have to do is to come here and say note. Then give it a new variable name called total cost display. So I want to display this total cost here. I want to display this total cost here. So you say total cost display. And remember is note. I remember that the note. Remember that is note. And remember that the note data type only displays an information. It does not take inputs. It only displays an information and does not take inputs. So total cost display bearing the new name of the new variable will now come to ouch. Let me expand it so it looks better. So wow. So we say notes total cost display. That's the variable name. So what do we want it to display? Whatever we want it to display should be in label. So we want it to display that total cost of hospital visit is bum bum. It will mention the cost. So the value that this total cost is holding here is what it will drag because I've referenced it, because I've made reference to it here. The value, whatever value that this calculation in row 18, this calculation we did here, whatever value that it holds inside this total cost is the value it is going to bring here. So we say total cost of hospital visit is bum bum total cost. We supply that value here. So whatever value we enter there will come here and be displayed in our phone. So that's why that day, after grading and testing it, we were able to display the total. Okay. Any question on this calculation, calculate function, and things like that? Any question? Any question, please? Because we're rounding up.
I'm sorry, I didn't really.
Go ahead.
Understand the calculation.
You don't understand what? What do you not understand so that I can go over it again, please?
How to calculate?
Okay. All right. Any other question? Before I assume that we understand it very well. Any other question from anybody? So I will understand that, I will assume that we are good. Okay, if that is the case, I said that we have this list of items we want to know their cost. We have this list of items we want to cost, and those list of items are for now. We have transport, registration, lab, and drugs, and they are going to be taking the data type of integer because the amount, of course, this is an integer 2, 500, 4545. They are all integers. So those are the data types that these items will be holding. So we want them to hold integer for us. And we've done that. We've created that platform and named them accordingly. So in the ODK, when you open your phone will request you to enter cost of transportation as an integer. So request you to enter cost of registration as an integer, and it will request you to enter cost of lab and drugs as integers. All right. Now I want to know the total cost. Just like we have text, note, integer, image, select _1 or multiple as data types. We equally have calculate as a data type. So we want to calculate the total sum, the sum of our entry. So we want to calculate the sum of our entry, and what we do is that the data type is calculate. We just type calculate here, and then create a new column called calculation. Very important. Create a new column called calculation, because that's where you're going to be performing a calculation. Then name it, name the variable, maybe total cost or age disparity. You want to minus the age, the reported age and the actual age. So you have collected the reported age, and then you have also collected the actual age. You go to a household for immunization assessments. You ask the mother, what's the age of the child? She tells you it's 2 years. You ask for the immunization card. They bring the card, and you see that the child is 1 year and 6 months. So you want to check the disparity between the reported age and the actual age. So you can do that. Use minus sign, subtract the other one from the other, all right? So now you are going to name that variable as age disparity, or however you want to remember it. But for this cost, I want to remember it as total cost. That's why I named it here. All right, that's the variable name. And this is just the label, so I can call it total cost. Right. So now to perform the calculation itself, I now say that total cost is equal to $, whatever amount is in transport, plus $, whatever amount that is in registration, plus $, whatever amount that is in lab, plus $, whatever amount that is in drugs. That's all we need. So this sums the cost of all these items for us and puts it inside total cost. So this total cost is a representative of the answer after summing these 4 items. So anytime we want to look at or refer to the total of this cost, we call on total cost. Anywhere at all we want to make reference to the total amount spent in that particular hospital visit, we call on total cost. So we now come to where we want to display it and say notes. Notes is a data type that enables us to display a message without asking for an input. So we'll say notes, and then we'll call it that because any row you create in XLSForm must have a variable name except the end group. The end group is the only known row that you create that is not required for you to put a variable name. Any single row you create must have a
Thanks,
variable
sir.
name.
Thank ma.
All right, it must have a variable name. And because it must have a variable name, what I named this is now total cost display. The first one is total cost, where we did the calculation. That is what is holding the value. The second one is total cost display, that will now display the value it is holding for us. That's the variable name. Then what you want it to display is usually put in the label column. So what you want it to display should be in the label column, and we'll say total cost of hospital visit is the value in the total cost of our calculation row. Is what we passed here, is what we bring in here and ask it to display it, and it will display it. Do you understand it better now? I've also shared this Excel document with Nebe. I think I'm sure she must have disseminated it. Dr. Zemongo, do you understand it better now?
I've shared it.
Any question?
Disseminated.
Any question or comment before we call it a night? Any question or comment before we say good night? I'm waiting. Question, comments, suggestion, question, comments. I don't know. Yes, question, comments, suggestion. Have any suggestion at all? Any question? Don't know. Just any comments? Nobody's talking. Looks like it's been a busy Saturday for us. Everybody is quiet and this is weekend. It's not supposed to be a busy Saturday for us. Okay. In the absence of any other question, and having been here to convince you and not confuse you about what we've been discussing.
Okay, sorry. That SLS form that was sent, is it the assignment itself?
No, the assignment
That's
comes
the one
in
that was sent on the training group.
Microsoft Word. That's a questionnaire, pure questionnaire in Microsoft Word. The XLS form is our class practice from the one, what we have built from the one. It's just for you to study it again, go through it line by line to see how it functions, so that if you have any question that a particular line, you don't understand how this works, you can ask it as a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, what about the videos, please?
The video for, okay, so I'll review that one that you said you could not play. I'll